All right, I'm with a brand new pickup video. This one will be a little bit different because this is completely dedicated to me picking up the PlayStation 5, which released either the day that this went up, last Thursday, the 12th, and I managed to get one. So I figured I would talk about the console, some of my thoughts on the console. With 2 days of experience with it, I figured I'd talk about the games I picked up with it and just overall thoughts. So the people's ability to get this has been a pretty huge mess. It's not been great with how things have gone with getting it. Obviously, there's definitely reasons that are pretty apparent of why manufacturing has been a little bit rough with this. Why why it might be hard to have it distributed. You know, can't blame Sony too much for that. I don't think they're pulling the artificial scarcity thing that like Nintendo was doing with the Wii. I think that they genuinely would like to get this in as many hands as possible, but current events and also people who are botting botting web pages and scalping, which I've seen plenty of those pictures on Twitter of people with stacks of them. That's definitely been a problem as well. So, what can you do? I managed to get one when so they did like one of those like a presentation, like they streamed a presentation with the date and some information about games. And at the end, they were like, "Oh yeah," or I think on Twitter, Sony posted like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna starting tomorrow, we're gonna start having pre-orders going up." And then everyone put up pre-orders like that night, and there were like no pre-orders the next day. And I happened to just call my local GameStop. I asked him if they started doing pre-orders, and he said, "Yeah, we only have a few," so I would hurry on over. So I went on over there, put the money down, and got it. So it was pretty easy for me. I definitely feel bad for people who it wasn't as easy for. As far as Xbox Series X, I'm not too interested in getting it right off the bat. It seems like an interesting system. It seems like it's really good. The Game Pass is definitely a huge draw, but as far as it goes, the exclusives right now at least are not out. So I'm kind of waiting on that. But yeah, it definitely looks like a good system. I'm not here for console wars crap. I hate that. I left that in middle school. I would hope most people did as well. But if you're gonna comment with some console wars stuff, save it for someone who actually cares. Um, right now, I'm very impressed with PlayStation 5 after having it Thursday and now here on Friday that I'm recording this. I've had about 2 days of use with it. Played a few games on it. Very impressed with it. I'll talk about the controller first. Controller might be my new favorite controller. I really like the Switch Pro controller as well, but this one just feels really good. It's very hefty. It has like a nice weight to it, which I like. I don't like it when a controller feels light because it feels kind of cheap, kind of breakable, but I like the controller a lot. It feels hefty. The buttons feel nice. Sticks feel nice. The adaptive trigger thing is really, really cool, I think. I thought maybe it'd be a little bit gimmicky, but it is pretty interesting. You definitely feel the lack of it now because I'll get into it a little later. I was playing a PlayStation 4 game I picked up with the new system as well, and I was kind of like clicking the triggers, and I'm like, man, this feels weird after playing a couple games where I was having the triggers be a little bit harder to push at certain times. Having it like completely easy to push is interesting. I really like that adaptive controller stuff as well as the rumble. It has like really cool haptic feedback rumble, which is really interesting. I hope this stuff gets used into the future. I have a feeling it won't, especially with third party stuff. It's a bit what happened with PS4, is that you had all these touchpad, features and all this stuff, and the touchpad ended up just being used as like a button, essentially, a map button usually. So I'm kind of concerned that it won't be used. Hopefully it will. I'm going to guess that though third-party stuff isn't going to be as on board with it after launch, but what can you do? Very interesting stuff, very cool. The pack-in game that they have pre-installed on the system, which I think is really cool actually, because this stuff takes get the discs or you download the game. It takes a little bit to install that stuff, get it on your system. So it's really cool that they have a packing game that was out of the gate on the system. That it's really good. Astro's Playroom, I think it's called. It's like a follow up to Astrobot Rescue Mission, which was a VR game for PlayStation VR. I heard great things about that. I never got PlayStation VR. I tried it once. The resolution's really low, so it looks like it's looking through a screen door, and it made me really motion sick. So I held off on spending whatever $300 on PlayStation VR. But I heard Astrobot Rescue Mission was one of the best games like on PS4 period. So if it's anything like the Playroom game, I thought the Astro's Playroom was really cool. It's like a platformer. It's about 2 hours to beat, which is, I mean, for a free game, it's pretty decent. And it kind of just shows you different features of the PlayStation 5 system as well as features of the controller. The different, some of the parts feel a little gimmicky because they're trying to show you different things, but overall, it's a really solid 3D platformer. It was a lot of fun. It's all about like, there's 4 different worlds, and each of them are PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, and PSP are mixed together. And then PlayStation 4 and Vita are also mixed together. So those are the 4 worlds, like the 4 different eras of PlayStation. And you collect little, PlayStation Easter eggs, systems, accessories, some reasonably obscure stuff. You can collect like the screen for the PSONE, the mini system. It's just funny stuff. There's some other stuff in there too, like the PlayStation Move zapper gun. It's a pretty fun game. I really enjoyed it. I'll probably get the platinum for it. It seems pretty obtainable. I'm already like halfway there. And yeah, I thought that was a really great packing game. It's kind of interesting going back to, I mentioned, going back to it being free. I mean, you look at, what was that, 1-2-Switch, which launched for $50 on launch day and is really, I can't imagine anyone who bought 1-2-Switch thinks that was a worthwhile investment. But yeah, for, I mean, a free packing game, it was really, really good. And I hope that we see more, traditional 3D platformers with Astrobot if the other games are going to be as good as that one was. Because it was a really great game, like a really just genuinely good 3D platformer for a 2-hour experience that you get get for free. And Astrobot, he's a cute little mascot character, I gotta say. I think Knack walked so that Astrobot could run. So I'll go into some of the games I got. I was really impressed with the fast loading that they have. The solid state drive allows it for the loading to be pretty instantaneous. So I messed around with a few PlayStation 4 games, booting them up, and there's still some loading for PlayStation 4 games since they're not all optimized for the PlayStation 5 using that, but they're greatly reduced right out of the box, just putting it on there, which is really cool. I tried out Ghost of Tsushima because that's like a really standout, stellar looking game for PlayStation 4. And it was one I held out. I wanted to install it anyway because I held out on finishing it because I wanted to just play it on PlayStation 4 or on PlayStation 5. Because with the PlayStation 5, one of the big reasons I should say that I actually picked it up at launch was I was still using my base model PlayStation 4 that I got in 2014. So definitely older hardware, starting to maybe show its age a little bit. I never upgraded to the Pro, so I never got the frame rate advantages that might have brought from the extra horsepower. I never got the 4K resolution. So that, even though I had a 4K TV for years now, so it was worthwhile for me to pick up PlayStation 5 because I'm still going to be playing PlayStation 4 games for a while. I still am playing PlayStation 4 games. I have a PlayStation 4 backlog, so I'm going to be playing PlayStation 4 for a while. So being able to play them, not on 7-year-old hardware, on something that's a bit more, modern, that's going to push these games and allow them to, look the best they can. I think that's great. But I got a little off track there. Yeah, I was really, really impressed with how Ghost of Tsushima looks. I think they patched it so it's 60 frames a second, and it looked really nice. The 4K, that game looks stunning with 4K HDR. Definitely looks fantastic. So I'm looking forward to getting back into that one, finishing it up, and probably going for the platinum. But I'll go to the games I got. I think the biggest games on this system, one of them I didn't grab. I didn't grab Demon Souls. I know a lot of people looking for the remake of the classic From Software PS3 game. I've never actually tried any of the Souls games. Maybe one day I will. I have like Bloodborne from PS Plus, so that would probably be the one I'd play. But I don't know. I don't know if it's something for me. I don't know if it would click for me necessarily. I'm not usually too into like hard punishing games. So, but I'd like to try Bloodborne at some point, at least since I have that one. So I passed on that one. I know that's a pretty big deal for a lot of people, but just gonna get that out of the way. I did not grab that one. I did grab though another big deal, Spider-Man Miles Morales. So this is a bit of like a 1.5. It's not a direct sequel to Insomniac's 2018 Spider-Man game. It's a bit of a 1.5, somewhat like the PlayStation 4 Uncharted follow-up, Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. It's like its own standalone title. It's a little bit shorter. This is only $50 instead of the usual 70 that games are on PlayStation 5 now. So it's like a reduced price. It's essentially what, Uncharted: The Lost Legacy was 40 instead of 60. So it's essentially the same difference. You can get the some kind of ultimate edition of Miles Morales for 70 that has Spider-Man remastered in it. I didn't go for that because I already have Spider-Man on PS4. I don't plan on going back to the remastered, so it's fine by me. But I'm really impressed with this one. This is also on PlayStation 4, so that's definitely an option if you're not looking to upgrade. I think you get a free upgrade if you just put in the PS5 disc or the PS4 disc to your PS5. You can get a PS5 version. It's essentially you can play the PlayStation 5 version, so that's a good bonus. But yeah, I think it looks great. I think the loading, I mean, it boots straight to the game essentially as soon as you boot it up. It's pretty impressive. Like, if you do a cold boot, usually on something like Spider-Man on PS4, which had pretty long load times, it would take a while to like cold boot into that game. But yeah, you cold boot it and it's in there immediately pretty much. Really, really cool. And the game looks great. The first game I thought looked great, but this one definitely looks pretty fantastic. I think Insomniac is probably one of the most talented Western studios, if not the most talented. So they definitely are able to pump out something that looks good. The character models, I think, look a lot better than the original game. I thought some of the character models look kind of weird. They changed Peter Parker's face, which is weird because he looks a lot younger than he should. He looks like the same age as Miles Morales, even though he's supposed to be like a mentor character. But I didn't really like the face in the original game. Something about it looked kind of rubbery, kind of creepy. So I don't know. But really impressed with this one. It definitely feels like an upgrade to the first game in a lot of the systems ways from what I've played. I haven't finished it yet or anything. Story seems a lot more involved than I thought it was going to be already, so it definitely seems cool. Definitely hinting at some villains that I was like, I didn't think they would go with those characters for, a smaller game like this. But I don't know how much smaller it is. I've heard it's like maybe 10, 15 hours instead of like 15, 20 max, like the first game was, so I'm not quite sure. But I'm excited to play more of it. Very impressed with what I've played of it. Looks great, plays great. Adaptive controller, the triggers are really cool because it actually kind of has like a little bit of pushback when you're doing web swinging, which is awesome. So really, really cool, really, really impressive. Next game I got here, Sackboy: A Big Adventure. So this is, not like a traditional Little Big Planet games, which is good for me. I didn't really like those games, to be honest. I just thought they were kind of sluggish feeling. They didn't feel good as 2D platformers. I don't really care about the character creation. For some reason, I don't know, something about Little Big Planet also makes me remember that Chris Chan video where he made a Little Big Planet version of Hans Asperger's and then beat him up. So that was kind of something about it's off-putting just because of that video, but I'm getting off track, very off track. But this game is pretty fun. I feel like they have like a really good launch lineup as far as games go. You have your hardcore game in Demon Souls. You have your mass appeal game with Spider-Man. And then you have a good game for younger people. This is a solid platformer. From what I've played about I'm only in the first world of this one. I just started it up this morning. But I mean, it's so far it's pretty easy right now, but I don't know if that's going to change because like I said, I'm only in the first world. But this is definitely would be a good game for kids, especially it's 4-player multiplayer. It's a lot like Super Mario 3D World, which is originally why I got it, because the gameplay looked a lot like that game. And that's definitely appealing to me. And yeah, it has that same kind of perspective. I don't think it's as good from what I've played, but you don't really get much better than Mario at any point. But yeah, I think this would be good for a kid who's just learning to play games, who's just, figuring out how to use like analog sticks and all that. I think it'd be a good time, especially if you like to play games with your kids or if your kids want to play games with each other. Would be a good pick. I think this one's $50. It's also on PlayStation 4. So if for some reason it interests you, I would say go for it because it is, from what I've seen, pretty solid. I definitely like what I played of it more than any of the other Little Big Planet games. But like I said, it could be horrible. It could take a massive dump pretty quickly. because I've only played into the first world or whatever. But I used trade credit to pick this one up, so I figured there was very little risk in picking it up, and I figured at the very worst it'll be a fun enough little platformer. I definitely say Astrobot is the kind of star of the PlayStation 5 launch for platformers, at least. It's going to be hard to live up to that, but this is still a pretty enjoyable game. And like I said, I think it'd be good for multiplayer. I think it'd be good for a kid or just someone in general who's learning to play games, who's not, never played too much. I think it's a good starting point for a lot of people as well. And yeah, I think it's a worthwhile pickup. If you want to get an extra game and something like this appeals to you, I think it's a good choice for a good choice for a launch game to have something for a younger audience. And then finally, this isn't actually those are the only PlayStation 5 games I got, but I got a PlayStation 4 game that came out the same week. It's an Xbox Series X launch game, but the PlayStation 5 version is not going to be out until March of 2021, I believe. This is Yakuza Like a Dragon. So Microsoft got like exclusive rights to the launch rights, at least. They got like an exclusivity window for the next gen version, the enhanced version. So yeah, PlayStation guys, we gotta wait until March to get the PS5 version. I just picked up the PS4 version. I'm such a big fan of the series, I just want to play it. I can't imagine that the upgraded PS5 version is going to be that much better than the PlayStation 4 version of a Yakuza game. And it's been a good experience of still playing a game with a PS4 game on PS5. Looks good, like I say. Yakuza games often did have like some longer loads, and these, I don't know if this would load just as long on PlayStation 4 or not, or they optimize that better. But loads have been pretty short on PlayStation 5. The backwards compatibility is pretty seamless. It's not like some kind of crap with like Wii mode on the Wii U or you open up the GameCube channel on the Wii or whatever. It is it just treats a PlayStation 4 game like a PlayStation 5 game, essentially. It treats it like any other game, which is really, really cool, and it's really, really simple. And yeah, I mean, the game looks good. I've been playing it pretty much all day. I really like what I've played of it so far. I just got into chapter 2, so there's a decent amount of exposition, so be prepared for that. But I would definitely recommend it for people who haven't played the Yakuza series at all. I would say this is a good starting on point. To some extent, I should probably clarify that because this is this is a bit of a reboot in a sense. It's kind of like almost like, maybe I'm trying to think, like a Force Awakens type reboot. So this is a new protagonist. It's in the same city as the past Yakuza games, but it's a new protagonist, new characters, new cast. Some familiar elements from the original games, but from what I can tell so far, nothing that you need to play those ones. That could change later, but I don't think it will. They did a pretty good job with Judgment, which is another game that they did for PlayStation 4, and keeping that its own game, not having to rely too much on Yakuza previous titles. But yeah, I would recommend it. This is like kind of one of the only, correct me if I'm wrong, this is one of the only like Series X games out. So if you got a Series X, not like out, I mean, like, but one of the bigger games that's on the system, aside from like Assassin's Creed and stuff like that, because there's no exclusive on launch day for Series X. Kind of a long-winded way of saying that, but what I've played of this so far is great. I can definitely see some upscaling, and the game looks a bit better than I would have looked on my base PS4, which is great. That's I got it, the day it came out, but I was like, I'm going to wait until I get the PlayStation 5 just so I can, make sure it looks good and make sure it plays well. And I should mention, so the past Yakuza games are like kind of like a 3D brawler. And this game's actually a turn-based role-playing game, which I love the reason of why it is, which is because the main character really likes Dragon Quest. So anytime he gets into a fight, he just thinks of it like it's Dragon Quest. So it actually plays a lot like Persona as well, and there's a lot of stat building, like similar stat building to Persona with characteristics and stuff like that, which is really cool. I mean, Atlas is part of Sega now, so it makes sense. But yeah, I really like that a lot. I think the turn-based it's still pretty fun. I know that turn-based could turn a lot of people off, but I think it's still pretty fun. I think it's still pretty exciting. It's a great way of switching it up because the past Yakuza games, there's 0 through 6, which is 7 mainline games, and also there's Judgment, are all just like that 3D brawler. Similar games. I still think they're a lot of fun, and they each offer their own individual stuff, which keeps them fresh. But it's nice to just see them say, let's try something different. Let's keep it similar in every other way, but now the combat's different, and I really like it. So I think it's great. So that's my thoughts on PlayStation 5, my first couple days with it. I'm sure they'll change and evolve. As you can see, I never mentioned how huge the system is. The system is huge. That's probably the biggest downfall of it for me. It doesn't fit in my entertainment center, so I had to put it on the floor. I'm going to have to try to figure out a nice stand for it or something. But it is really large. You can see how big this box is. It's massive. But I don't know. I really like it. The design's not great, but I think everything else, the interface is fantastic. The setup was really smooth and easy. I like the interface a lot. I'm really impressed with it so far. I'm interested to see more. Like I said, I bought 2 PS5 games that could also be played on PS4, I should say. So I'm interested to see games in the future that I'll be picking up that will use, the PS5, that are exclusively developed for PS5, something like Ratchet and Clank. See how that uses the hardware in the ways that those games cannot. So I'm really interested to see where it goes, but I am quite excited for continue playing it, continue messing around with it. I'll continue to post thoughts on my Twitter, so make sure to follow me there at Objo Gaming. Other than that, leave a comment down below if you picked the PS5 up or if you picked the Series X up, what games you picked up, anything like that. Let me know what your thoughts on these new systems are. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, and I'd like to thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.